We're going to be excited about this.
Yes, we're excited about how much we hate debt.
Yes.
Got it?
I hate debt!
Today's topic is debt. The question I have for you is, have you ever been in a large amount of debt, and how did you get out of it?
I would say I have, definitely, but what I've been able to do is, for the most part, paid off quickly. When we first started out, that was a little harder because, it seems like most of us start out poor and with very little money, and so when we loan money to help out, it takes us a longer time. But if you can increase your income, that's one of the biggest things that will help you pay off your debt. If the way that you can increase your income is, one, increase the amount of clients you have. Also, managing that money in your business and not spending it all like a lot of business owners do. So if you can do that, really all you need to increase your income is get that next client, get that next customer.
And when you make an extra buck in your business, figure out where you're going to spend it, right?
Yeah, on the personal side.
We've talked about budgets in other videos. You got a budget on the business side, you got a budget on the personal side. So for sure, I think it's really difficult for people to go make extra money just every day. Sometimes they're in a job where they're paid a salary. They can't work extra hours. They don't have time to go get a second job. So one of the ways you can control debt is make sure that you're planning a budget so that you can set money aside and not take debt out. I think a lot of times people think, I have to have a car loan. I have to have a credit card. I have to have a mortgage. I have to have student loans. Some of these really big debts, I'm going to speak from firsthand experience, student loans are just terrible. They're
worthless.
They don't have collateral. You have a house loan, you can sell your house if you really needed to pay that debt off. Student loans, you just don't have that.
Yep.
You should not be going into debt for student loans.
So what should you be doing?
How do you avoid that?
If you can avoid that by working through college, that would be the best option. I know that's hard because you also want to have a social life. We all do in college. I was there once. I took out some loans. I wish I had not. I wish I would have worked through it. You learn a lot more by working anyway, and it gets you closer to your goals faster than you would if you take out student loans.
Well, I put a little bit of a caveat if you're going into the medical profession or some of those kinds of things where you're in school for years and years and years and years. There's a place for it. But as a general rule, it's not supposed to be. It's become the norm, and I don't think it should be. It's a matter of teaching your kids early on to start saving and making sure that they are in the habit of paying things in cash, not getting to the habit of saying, hey, when I go to school, I'll just take a loan out and then I'll just pay it off when I can. That's kind of how my mindset was growing up. And so I thought it was normal, and it was terrible. We sold one of our homes and took the equity and paid off the vast majority of that debt.
That's awesome.
And it put us quite a bit behind, but that's what we had to do to kind of dig out of the hole. And it was a little hard to see those thousands and thousands of dollars worth of checks going to student loans. That was frustrating.
Well, and also when you take out debt, you're really robbing from your future self. Because if you can wait and pay things in cash, you're going to feel a lot more confident in life. Whenever I owe somebody money, it's always in the back of my mind, and I hate that stress that I feel.
Is there any such thing as good debt?
So I would say decent debt is going to be for buying a modest home. Mm-hmm. Modest is the key. You don't need a 7,500 square foot home. You don't need to build a brand new home. You can buy something that you can afford the payments and pay it off quickly. So I would say a home is definitely number one. And number two, if you need to for a modest vehicle, then that's acceptable, mm-hmm. But it should not be something that you get in the habit of doing every single time, because that is the norm. Just like Jordan said, I love how he said you're robbing from your future self. That's
interest adds up.
Really good way to look at it for sure. So I know one of the things my business clients ask is, should I take a loan out for equipment? Should I take a loan out for this? Should I take a loan out for that? There's any number of things you can take a loan out for, or getting a line of credit with the bank for. That is really, really helpful and powerful for purchasing power. But you have to remember, you got to pay that back. So what happens is they take a loan out, let's say for a truck, and they buy this truck with a loan. Maybe they put a little bit of money down and they start making payments on it for 4 or 5 or 6 years. Well, the reality is they take the deduction for tax purposes right up front. So they think it's all great. They go, they buy a truck, they expense it, they save a bunch of money in year 1. The problem is all the rest of the years, besides the interest, those principal payments don't get you any benefit. And so that's a really frustrating to see them spend money year after year after year and not get any benefit for it in those years. So that's one thing I would say, make sure you're managing that cash flow and you're not taking out the debt unless you have to have it.
Well, and it also, you think about it, it increases the overall cost of that vehicle. And so you go in thinking, oh, how much did you buy it for? Well, I bought it for 20 grand. No, actually it was more than that with interest.
Yeah, and if you want to scare yourselves, go look at your mortgage note that you signed, and it'll say, here's your loan, and then it'll say, here's what you will pay when it's all paid off, if you have like a 30-year loan. And it's terrifying. It's multiple.
So much
You've paid for your house multiple times by the time you pay it off, and that's sad, you know.
So how can you avoid that? What's a tip for not paying that much?
I would add even just a little bit, even if it's $100 a month, $200 a month, if you can do $500 a month, add that to your loan payment. It is going to save you usually an incredible amount in interest on your home.
Yeah, and so I did that with my mortgage, our little app. You can log in, and by adding, it will tell you right off, you add $50 to your payment every month, it will save you X number of dollars in the life of the loan. So it's really cool because I went and added like $75 the other day to our mortgage, and it said this will decrease the life of your loan by 2 years.
Sweet.
But with $75. So it was like, that was really cool to see that right up front. And so if you can accelerate the payments due, but the biggest thing is you have to live within your means. If you don't have extra money, that means you can't go on 3 vacations a year, and you can't buy a boat, and you can't buy a side-by-side, and you can't buy this and that. And that's hard for people to hear, but that's just kind of the stark reality when it comes to trying to get out of debt.
Is there a rule of thumb for someone with a business as to know how much debt they can get into without the business being viable? Does that make sense?
That's a great question, actually. So I do work for a lot of contractors, and when they go bid on big government jobs, they have to go to what's called a bonding agent. In other words, they have to be able to qualify for the loan and to qualify for the job. And those bonding agents look at their ability to meet their debt. So that's going to be how much cash and how many current assets, things that you can liquidate within a year. How much do you have of that compared to your debt? And if your debt exceeds your current assets, then they're not going to qualify. And so you have to have more cash and liquid assets than you have liabilities in order for it to make sense. So it's a little bit confusing. So if you want to know more about that, feel free to leave a comment. We can chat about that a little bit more. That's a much bigger concept than what I've covered.
Get a little deeper into that.
But the main takeaway is make sure you have more cash than the debt that you have so you can service that debt. They have to learn to check their desires. Right?
So to sum it up, get out of debt, you're going to be a lot happier. So like and subscribe below, and also leave us some comments.
We'll get better looking guys to do it.
Okay, that'd be great.
Will you do that? That would be awesome.